Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. My name is Tom. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's been a long time since I've updated you guys on things and recorded a video. To say that life has been challenging would be kind of a gross understatement, but here I am and I hope to do better in the future. But for starters, I'll give you guys some of the backlog of what's happened. So first and foremost, our house in LA was a nightmare to sell. We moved from Los Angeles in the middle of June. We got here, I think it was on Father's Day in South Carolina. It took us almost 5 days to drive out here across the country. We made it out here and we've been trying to sell our house since I think the middle of May. We started the paperwork. If not before that, and then the house finally went on the market Memorial Day, and since then it's just been a nightmare. The agent that we were working with, I'm not naming names, I'm not naming companies or anything. He was less than stellar. In fact, he was a friend for about 6 years. He was a decent friend. He found us one of the homes that we rented years ago, and we thought that because we had a decent relationship with him that he would actually put out the effort and do a good job, especially now that he was going to be getting a decent commission from selling our home. Well, that wasn't the case, and my wife and I got kicked in our heads and we had to scramble, and we terminated basically all the agreements. Even I guess our friendship is over. So moral of that story is, be careful when doing business with relatives or friends or whatever, because you're risking ultimately losing that relationship. And if it means something to you, you will go third party to when you need to cut some strings and you need to part ways. You're not doing it in a way that's, I guess, hurtful, because that's what it was. We were really disappointed, and it was the kind of disappointment that you don't really expect when you're dealing with somebody you know. With that said, we got another friend gave us some lists of realtors. Actually, she sent us 3, and the first one on that list was the highest rated, so we went with the highest rated one. And you know what? This one, solid. In fact, I have recommended her already on social media and a few other places. She and her partner did a phenomenal job of producing 3D tours of the home. They flew a drone above the house. She even had her child kind of in slow-mo jump into the pool, so it was kind of neat how they produced it. They brought in a cleaning crew to clean the place from top to bottom, because when we left we just didn't do it. Plus the house was sitting idle, I guess, for almost 2 months, and things were just spiraling the wrong direction, and this team came in and they literally just from A to Z just made it a solid experience. Communication was much better. These guys were up and up on tech, and they were using social media platforms for marketing, and they did a really great job, and I really appreciate them for their efforts. But anyway, it still took a few months for that house to sell, and during that time we were dealing with paperwork, documentation, all the disclosures that you have to write, all the legalese, and reading and rereading and redoing and counter offers and blah blah blah. It literally burned the day away really fast. So even though you have a great team, there's still a lot that you have to do. Not to mention that, we're 2,000 miles away from that property, and we can't just show up and, check something out. I always had to, call friends and family that are left in LA, and I had to ask them to go over there. And I had a friend of the family take care of the pool, which, if you don't do something with every 2 or 3 days, you're going to have water that's kind of similar to what's back there. But you know, suffice it to say, he took care of it. I would order supplies from Amazon and have them just shipped to his house, you know, chlorine, and I think we replaced the skimmer and a few other things. And he really made that part easy. And then, as you know, after we left in June, he kind of took over the grounds maintenance. So he would take care of the yard, watering plants, because we did leave some potted plants behind and stuff like that. So the coordination of that, although it sounds easy, is absolutely the biggest logistical nightmare, especially at a time when it's hard to get stuff, you know, with supply chains still being out of whack, you know, and inflation just skyrocketing through the roof. It cost me a fortune to just maintain that house after it was empty. So that added to stress, that added to bills and expenses that, you know, were on top of this house. You know, everything that we're paying for here was just, it was a fraction of what we were paying for a completely empty house over there. In fact, all of my expenses here were literally 42% of those of an empty house in LA. That includes all the utilities, because we had to leave the connection with the electrical utility on because of the solar system. We left the gas on so that they could do an inspection with the hot water heater and all that jazz. Also, the water was left on, obviously, and all that stuff just adds up. You know, even if a house is empty, it's still going to use some gas, because that hot water heater is going to come on. We didn't do tankless at that time, and we weren't really in a position to invest any more money into that house's, you know, appliances and fixtures and whatnot. So we just literally just walked away from it as it was. So all of those little tiny draws of water, of gas, of electricity. The electricity was kind of interesting because obviously the house was generating, God, it was probably generating, I want to say it was probably generating 600 on idle. It was probably generating 600 watts over what the house needed to survive. So all of that stuff was just credits. And I might be wrong on that number. I'd have to look at the apps, but I sent reports to the agent and all that stuff, so that way the buyers could have something tangible of historical value. So like all of the generation from the moment we turned the system on to the, I guess, September timeframe, this past September, all of that stuff was provided to them. And I can't remember what it was, but the net metering credit from the utility was, I think, negative $300, because all of a sudden there was there's no EV pulling power. The lights aren't on. There's no fridge in the house. The pool pump was the only thing that was really drawing power day in and day out, and the generation of power was actually covering that. So we're still below what the house would normally, you know, cost if you had just utility without solar. So it was actually a pretty decent experience with that, but there was still water usage. We were still adding hundreds, if not thousands, of gallons of water into the pool. We were watering the yard because there was a heat wave a few months back that lasted for, I think, 10 days, over 110 plus degrees. So we were watering twice a day, but that was all the water consumption really there, and also filling up the pool and making sure the chemistry was good, and, you know, making sure the stuff was kept clean. All of those little tiny details, you add them all up, and they were still, you know, much higher inside an empty house, essentially, than all of ours combined for this property. This property has no sprinklers. We get rain here every week. I think the longest we went without rain was 9 days, and even then, grass is growing, everything is green, trees are happy. And now as we're going into the fall, you kind of see behind me, I don't know how well you can tell, but the yellows are coming out, the reds are coming out, the orange is coming out, fall colors. So this area is really well taken care of by Mother Nature, and it's one of the most beautiful things that I have ever seen. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about a minute ago, all of this stuff, all of these little tiny details consumed months of my life. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. The only thing I would literally do was to just take my kid to school, which is behind those trees over there, and then bring him back at the end of the day. I'd do my work. I would have zero time, because when my kid came home, you know, he had homework, he had stuff that he needed to do. By the time we were done with that, you know, we'd give him some time with the iPad, and then I would go back to work for, you know, 2 or 3 hours at night. And then by the time I was done, you know, I'd look at the clock and it would be 10:30 at night. And I think to myself, can I record a video, or is it just going to be my tired rear end talking about nonsense? So that's kind of where my life went. And now that we closed on the house, now that I've terminated that part of my life, that chapter has come to a close, I figured it's time to come back. You know, there is a couple of updates that I want to share with you guys, and one of those updates is about the EV. So you guys know that before I left California, I surrendered my 2020 Bolt EV Premier at the Chevrolet dealership in Valencia, California. That decision was made based on the fact that it was going to cost me a small fortune to transport the Bolt EV, that Bolt EV, across the country. You know, we've already decided at that point that we were going to tow a 4x8 trailer, an enclosed, you know, one of those U-Haul enclosed trailers, with my wife's Toyota RAV4. And we've already decided that as a family we would go together, because there would be no point in my wife towing the trailer or driving the Bolt EV and vice versa, or whatever. And it didn't make sense for us to take 2 vehicles on the road when, you know, it would just add to the time. It already took us into the 5th day, so it took us 4 days plus 90 minutes of the 5th day to get out here. We finally got to South Carolina on Father's Day at about 1:30 in the morning, and it was tough. It was a tough drive, especially the last leg, because we didn't sleep well in Memphis. We had a bad experience. I think I already shared that with you guys. If not, if you want to know about it, I can record a video on that. It's more humorous now than anything else, but at the time it was an absolute disaster. But from Memphis to South Carolina was a full day drive. We left there at 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, had breakfast, and then we drove. We hit the road. And to drive all through Tennessee, that western tip of North Carolina into South Carolina, took us into the following day. So it was a little rough. But I will say that the trip was beautiful, especially once the scenery went from you know, sand and desert to green rivers and trees, and the beauty of it all. It was an amazing feat that we did that, you know, with a kid. All of us have issues sitting still, and we did it across the country for multiple days at a time. So kudos to the family for that. But, you know, from that point, we knew that our life was going to get challenging, with the fact that we had to wait for our stuff to get here. We had multiple weeks of things that were just pending for us. We had to wait for the truck to get here with all of our belongings. We had to make do without a refrigerator. Our washer and dryer was on that same truck, so we had to find a laundromat, and we were doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And things just, that was the start of it. That was the uphill ramp of what we were doing, what we were living through. And as time went on, it got more difficult. Inflation exploded. The market in LA no longer was a seller's market, so I will tell you this, we lost $100,000 of value on the sale of our house from the moment we listed it to the day we closed. That's a significant chunk of money lost, but we had to settle, and we had to just cut our losses and say goodbye to a chapter that was almost 18 years in the making. Anyway, suffice it to say, we decided at that point to surrender the Bolt EV. We got rid of everything that was just excess, and we loaded everything onto the truck that we didn't need, and we took a trailer that was going to have a certain amount of stuff on it that we needed to survive, our paperwork, a couple other things that we couldn't put on the truck, like we had gas cans for the barbecues, we had a few things that were flammable, etc., that they wouldn't take for insurance reasons, so we took those. And it would have been more difficult if we would have taken the Bolt EV as an additional vehicle. The charging times, even though I have no issue with charging times, I figure if you're going for a drive across the country and you have your family on board with you, you have to decide if the additional time is worth it. You have to pay for an extra day in a hotel potentially and all that stuff, because it adds time. I mean, each charging stop could have been anywhere between 45 minutes and 75 minutes, depending on what chargers were open, or if we needed to wait for a charger to become available while at a store or whatever. Didn't want to take that risk, so we decided at that point to ship it. But then it became hard to ship it because, of course, at that point everybody knew about the battery fires, everybody knew about the recommendations of what GM was saying, of what you should and shouldn't do. And as such, a lot of the transporter companies were like, no, we can't take your vehicle without a significant insurance policy to cover the entire load in case the battery explodes. And I remember having that conversation with one of the sales guys thinking, this is just not right. Like, this isn't my fault. It's not something that I have any control over. And I had no way to, assure them that the car was safe. I had no way to tell them that, the car's charged to, 70% or whatever, and there's not gonna be a problem. It's at GM's recommendation, because they wouldn't believe me anyway. So after dealing with that for about 10 days, I just said, screw it, cancel the order. I'm going to surrender the vehicle. So I had a conversation with the rep that I was working with a few months ago at GM, and I told her, I said, listen, I got a problem. We're moving. This is our move date. I need to do something with this vehicle. I need to turn it in like ASAP. And they were like, well, wait, you're moving? So there's new paperwork now that needs to happen. And I'm like, I don't care. At this point, just make it happen, because in a few weeks we'll be gone. And we can't take the car with us because nobody will take it. And the people that do want to take it, they're going to try to rip us off with insurance policies and whatever to cover the loads in case the batteries explode or whatever in transit. So they understood, and actually the woman that I was working with, she said, you're probably the fourth or fifth person to tell us about this situation. So obviously it's a more widespread issue. And I told him, well, it makes sense. If I was the owner of a vehicle transport service and somebody brought a vehicle under recall of battery fires to me and expected me to put it in an enclosed trailer or on top of a open trailer or whatever, what do I do if that thing blows up behind me while I'm driving, down the freeway? Sure enough, it was one of those things that just made sense at the time, and we kind of went down that road, and they were able to accommodate. And 2 days before we left, I think it was June 11th of 2022, I surrendered my Bolt EV to the dealership, and that was it. And the whole process from that point forward was going to be working on getting here, and then once we're here, we pick a new dealership to handle the facilitation of the buyback and the MSRP swap and whatnot. And sure enough, that sort of worked out. You guys already know what happened once we got here, because that was a video that I recorded once I got here, where we were losing 3 or 4 cars every week, putting money, trying to figure out if we needed to put money down or whatever to hold a vehicle, and the vehicle would be gone by the time I was ready to pay for it. Super painful part of this recall. Fast forward, you know, what, 4 months now? Here we are in the middle of October of 2022. I still don't have a vehicle, but I heard about the issues that GM was having. About a week ago, I got a message from the dealer saying, hey, they're having a hard time registering VIN numbers in their systems, but they can see that there are status updates in the system that are reflecting some forward movement. What that means is unclear to me, because some forward movement to me means that there's progress, but if there's an issue registering VINs for the ultimate shipment of the vehicle and whatnot, then the vehicle's not moving. There's no forward progress, at least to the consumer. That's how I see it. I think everything else is kind of a moot point at that point. But yeah, so that's where we are with that. That's as of probably a week ago. Haven't heard anything new. The emails that I send to them, I'm trying to be really really nice and peaceful, because for a point in time I was really starting to get edgy with them. And you know, it's a frustration, you know, when you have 3 people sharing one car and everybody has their own life, where I need to go over there, or I need to do this. Like last week, I had to take my wife's RAV4 in for service because it crossed 30,000 miles, and we do the oil changes every 10,000 miles, etc., etc. We try to keep things, you know, kind of, you know, in a mental pattern, so you can remember, okay, 30,000 miles, it's time to take it for a service. 40,000 miles, time to take it for a service. So we crossed 30, and I was like, immediately, I need to make an appointment, and I did. But guess what? I couldn't make it during the week, because we have to go get our kid from school. We have to do this, we have to do that, everything. And there's no second vehicle. It's not like I could give my wife the keys to the EUV, right? I wish. There's no EUV. You know, to be able to do shopping and whatever her errands, you know, she's out now, she has the car, and I'm here at home recording this video. So between getting him and doing the errands and everything, it's very, very like tough and difficult to live with only one vehicle. I don't know how people did it, you know, decades ago, when you were lucky to have a car per like a family of 6. I guess lifestyles were a little different. But I know I had some training classes a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was months ago now, and I knew that I was going to be gone for 9 hours out of the day, you know, for the class, and then the hour it took me to get there, the hour it took me to get back. So you figure that 12 hours on a good day I would have been gone. So I did the next best thing, and I rented a car. So I've been renting cars for specific events. Like I had family that was flying into Charlotte, which is 75 minutes from here, Charlotte Douglas International. And I didn't want to take my wife's car, because again, if something happens to my kiddo or her or something, I want her to be able to get in and go. Hospital, urgent care, doctor, dentist, I don't care. When you have a 9-year-old in the house, the atmosphere is about as dynamic as the last hurricane that came through here a week ago was. So you could be talking to him one minute, and then the next minute he's holding a tooth in his hand, or he's cut up and swollen and broken, you know. I don't even want to think about that, because it stresses the ADHD out in me. And I literally take the easy way out, and I spent probably close to $10,000 since we got here on rentals. and I've asked GM to cover them, and they kind of laughed at me because they told me I could have taken my car. Nobody was holding a gun to my head, even though some people were holding a financial proverbial gun to my head. I wasn't going to pay, you know, 30 grand to ship a car 2,000 miles when I know that if I would have shipped my wife's car, it would have cost $1,800. There you have it. So tough. Everything's tough. Everything is fluid, dynamic, and it's just a lot of stuff to consider. Lastly, and you might have noticed from the intro that I do in pretty much every video, I introduce myself, and I typically say from 6FTNTWX. I'm not saying that anymore because 6FTNTWX is an entity that I left behind in Los Angeles. I still manage it, I still own it, but to be fair, the work, the day-to-day stuff has been pretty much, I wouldn't say outsourced, but I've hired essentially a team to do on-site visits and stuff like that. And what I need to do is, because to South Carolina and to most legal processes here, 6FTNTWX is a foreign entity, and in more than one way, because it's a California entity, it's close to impossible to register that company as a foreign entity here in South Carolina. So what I need to do is I need to start a whole new business, a whole new company. So I'm in the middle of doing that. When I finally get all the paperwork signed and all the legalese taken care of for that, then I will share that with you. But 6FTNTWX is going to remain in Los Angeles, and at some point it'll be dissolved when the new company kind of takes off and gets going. So as far as the future of the channel, because it is called 6FTNTWX LLC, I don't know what the option is. I might leave the channel and then do a transition video to the new channel, and if you guys follow along, great. I also thought maybe I can do two channels, one that's EV centric, you know, and give you guys that option, or I can do another one that's IT based, or just kind of merge the two together. I don't know yet, so we'll figure out what will happen there when it comes. Unfortunately, YouTube, even though we had hoped for a much larger presence on it and much larger you know, flow of video over the last, I'd say 2 or 3 years, it's been super difficult. And I think it's funny, there was a phrase that somebody recently used where, you know, every time you try to get close, they end up moving the finish line. And that's kind of how I feel with YouTube. You know, when we got started in 2017, then the requirements changed to monetize and all of that stuff. So getting money from YouTube has been few and far between, and of course life gets in the way, you know, especially when you're, you know, managing a business, potentially two, a family, 2 jobs, and a situation of Gaussian proportions when it comes to the EV. You know, that said, it is just one thing after the other, right? I guess that's why they call it life, and it is what it is. But I'm here now, and I will keep you guys in the loop, and we'll see how things unfold, and I'll be transparent about it. I don't have, you know, much to hide. I do want to show you guys something inside my garage that I took care of a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. Time's just running together. I don't know what's what, but before the battery runs out in this camera, I'm going to pick up this tripod and I'm going to carry you into my garage. So, by the way, you guys were standing on my barbecue. Thanks for keeping it company. So, the garage is still a disaster, so I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. I loaned my ladder here. This guy is my trusty ladder. I loaned it to my mom for a few weeks, actually a few months, and I had no way to install the rafter storage that I bought in the old house, which actually you could see the mounts right here, these posts, and then the grates are over there on the floor. Hoping to get all of these boxes off the floor and get them up in that storage kind of tray that's going to be up here. But here's what I did get done, and I'll show you guys this. Main breakers, 200 amp service, whole bunch of breakers, and I now have 240 volts coming out of this little box here, going through this conduit all the way over there against the wall. I'll walk around because there's a massive pile of stuff here, but suffice it to say, I installed a EV charger. So you guys know in the old house I had, well, you may or may not know, I had this must start EV charger, EVSE, you know, supply equipment, and it worked really well with the old Bolt EV. You know, with the actually has a decent, you know, sturdy handle, very, very thick cable, and the NEMA 1450P, the plug, is really solid. It actually did really well. The one thing I do have to find, which I think it's in that box over there, is this actually has a tray that hangs this off the wall, so that way this little whip doesn't bear all the weight, because it is heavy. So essentially, in a nutshell, I installed this. I'm gonna turn you around here. That. So, and I made sure this time that it was the right way, because last time I installed it with the ground at the bottom. And in case you don't know, most of these EVSEs, if you do it right, the ground is on top. Otherwise, you're installing it like this, and look at that strain. So you want to make sure that you get this right. All in all, I think the parts were only about 30 bucks. A couple boxes, conduit, 2 breakers, because you need to, you know, install 2 of these. These are both 50 amp, which maxes out this line. And we'll see how it works whenever I get the EV in here. But the idea behind all of this is that none of it will be on the floor. So I'm gonna step out here and then essentially show you guys that all of this stuff, all these boxes, I want up on that storage truss that'll be hanging from the rafters, as well as the last of the moving boxes that are in the back of the garage. Also, if any of you guys are local to North Carolina, South Carolina, or you feel like doing a road trip from Atlanta or wherever you're from, I have a washer and dryer set. These are both Samsung. They're only a few years old. We used them in LA, and we brought them here without thinking, because what we didn't know is that there was no gas supply to dryers inside the home. So this is a gas dryer, and now we're looking at, you know, getting it out of here. So if you guys know somebody that wants to, you know, back a truck into this driveway, please do so, and I'll take any offer on them. I won't ship them because that's potentially hundreds of dollars. These things are heavy, but they're nice and new, and we had to buy a new washer and dryer set that was all electric. So gas dryer, washer washes great. It is a top load, and here, let me get the Halloween decorations off of here. But this actually has a cool thing, because it's got a washboard where you can actually push the button here. It'll fill this up with water, and if you have something that has stains, it'll, you know, it'll be able to be scrubbed. All the hoses are in here, so it's relatively clean. I mean, it's dusty as can be because it's been sitting here for 4 months, but we need the space, because hopefully by the time winter starts, we're going to want to be able to back our cars in. So we're trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. If it makes sense to add a roof over top of this. I don't know. It's all money, I guess, right? The question is, do you have it? Because I don't. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. I thought I'd give you guys, you know, just somewhat of an update with the EV, with the company, with all the stuff that's happening, and kind of just, you know, talk to you guys because it's been a while. And I hope that I'll be able to do some more videos. I want to do IT stuff. I'm actually got some interesting projects coming up. Doing more cybersecurity stuff now than I was before. It was mostly managed services, but the managed services business stayed in California, so we'll see what if the new company can do all cybersecurity stuff, you know, auditing, consulting, maybe some managed services. I don't know, we'll see. It's all TBD at this point, what we will be doing. So for now, I want to thank each and every single one of you for taking the time out of your day, you know, these 36 or 37 minutes or so, and joining me on this update. The path to get here was rough, but I hope that in time things will kind of smooth out more and be more, you know, be more solid with some kind of a path that will allow me to focus more on what's important. And you guys are important too. So family, business, you know, we wanted to make YouTube our go-to channel. You know, my wife and I talked about it many times, and I remember her saying, you know, it's been a long time since I've seen you do a video, you know, what's going on? And she's not wrong, guys. She's definitely not wrong. So with that said, I want to thank you guys again, because you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. If you haven't done so, please like and subscribe. You guys know the YouTube way of things. And in the meantime, go down in the comments. I'll be sure to go down there too in a little bit. Actually, I have some time today. I'm going to go back and see who's left me some notes of encouragement, because I know some of you guys have. I've seen the emails. So, again, thank you, and until next time.